Hello, my name is Alexis Fugate and I am an 8th grade student at Yeager Middle School. My project title is Predicting the Weather. To begin, my problem is it possible to predict the weather using weather instruments? Next, my hypothesis is that I will have success with predicting the weather because meteorologists use the same tools. If I collect the accurate data required, then I should be able to get accurate results and solve my problem. I used 4 different materials, also known as my weather instruments. I used the anemometer to measure wind speed and the direction the wind is flowing. Next, I used the barometer to measure how humid or dry the air is outside. Humidity is the number of water droplets in the air creating moisture and even sometimes rain. Finally, I used my thermometer to measure the temperature in degrees Fahrenheit and Celsius. The scientific procedure I used was the scientific method. First, I asked my question, also known as my problem. Next, I created my hypothesis on if I would or would not be successful predicting the weather. Throughout my project, I collected valuable background research to support my project. I can assure you from the research I gathered, it is possible to predict the weather. You must have the correct tools, know what they measure, and how to use them. After background research is complete, begin experimenting. Use all the knowledge of the tools. Create charts for 5 to 6 days of experiments. You will make a column for each measurement of temperature, wind speed, barometric pressure, and humidity. On a side note, barometric pressure is used to measure atmospheric pressure. The Earth has an atmosphere containing layers of air that have weight. The air presses against everything it reaches when Earth's gravitational pull interacts with the air, creating pressure. That pressure can increase or decrease. This can bring high and low pressure fronts, which can instantly make a change in the weather. When you make your first experiment, always pay attention to your surroundings. Collect your data, keep at a constant rate of time, which means it's necessary to keep doing your experiment at the same time. This also benefits your experiment, making it possible to see any changes. But the time you do the experiment must be between 1 to 3 hours difference at most. The reason behind this is if you check the temperature, for instance, at 7 a.m. and then again the next day at 1 p.m., you will see different results because those are 2 different times in the day. 7 a.m. is when the sun has arose, and the other is when the sun has been shining. It's about at its peak for the day. So you will see a difference of how the weather is for that time period. So you always want to make sure you have constant time or between 1 and 3 hours at most. To move forward, I've stated the materials I used, which were the thermometer, barometer, anemometer, and humidity gauge. I also stated my problem, hypothesis, and the scientific method. The results of my project were that I discovered how I could predict the weather successfully, creating accurate predictions and answering my hypothesis. Each weather instrument I used was important to my prediction because they all have certain jobs that are necessary to make your assumption. To conclude my project, the experiments I performed were 80% successful. My hypothesis was correct, and I discovered each fundamental skill you learn from background research has a huge impact on the outcome of a prediction. One thing I would like to add on to my project is something I uncovered from background research. When you predict the weather, you most definitely want to pay attention to barometric pressure, which can tell you if there is a high pressure or low pressure front approaching. If the pressure is high if the pressure suddenly drops, then you will see a low pressure system, which can bring storms, rain, and even sometimes high wind speeds. But in the opposite scenario, with a high pressure system, you will see rain, possibly a snowstorm. This is due to the high pressure front that is there. If the pressure is normal at 29.2 to 29.4 inches or 740 mmHgs, you will see sunny and even clear skies. This is due to the average and normal temperature. There are also other weather systems such as cold and warm fronts. For example, a well-known devastating weather phenomena called the tornado. It's formed when a warm and cold front combine into each other, beginning to thin out and spin up very fast into what we call a twister. That can turn into a tornado. The tornado can form at any time when cold and warm fronts meet, as well as high and low pressure systems. This is one of the many reasons we need meteorologists to inform us when inclement weather is approaching, so we can be prepared and stay safe. Thank you, and that was my project of predicting the weather.